Great news, everybody, and all freedom fighters in Britannia, as the establishment, including the Bank of England, have officially decided to deprioritize their net zero agenda. Now, let's not get too excited because it's still on the table, but the pushback and the fight back have definitely worked. The cost of living crisis and all the issues with energy security and everything else that's hitting us, it took them a while to actually realize that if they don't listen to the public, there will be a bit of an uproar, let's just say. Let's be polite. Let's just say there will be a bit of an upset in this country and across the Western world. So the good news we have is the institutions and establishments have now been informed that for now, at least, you're going to have to deprioritize all these draconian and crazy extreme militant measures for the net zero targets. Bank of England have been told and they're going to be cutting spending for its work on net zero. And they've also taken it off the table for now because all the pressure of expenditure, it's actually prompts the central bank, Bank of England, to focus on core areas. Basically, actual things that matter to the country and people. Cost of living crisis, inflation, the currency level, everything else that we have, the debt and deficit. We have so many issues with interest rates. And they've been focusing on, obviously, keeping Greta Thunberg and Attenborough happy. So this is good news. Now, it's going to continue to keep going. The Bank of England, all those guys, and the Treasury have been warned in the past. They ignored all those warnings and reports. They're finally hearing something from the government, mainly because, it's my opinion, my theory is the elections are coming up. And the Tories are getting their act together for now. They're they're trying to sort out the illegal migration crisis. We'll have to see if they actually do it. And they're going to do something. They're going to go slightly more populace, and actually listen to the public in general. They're going against ULEZ and they are fighting back against all these ideas. So Net Zero Watch reported that climate programs are to be dropped down the Bank of England's agenda so that officials can focus more on core operations such as financial stability. And this is thanks to the rising pressures on its costs, the cost of net zero. Bloomberg actually confirmed this story as well. By the way, let's not forget that recently we've had all these data and warnings to the Bank of England. They actually used false data recently, a couple of years ago, and discredited scenarios to exaggerate climate costs. So this is what they did. Literally, you can see on the right-hand side, top right, the graph that they put out. They basically picked the worst-case scenarios and said, because this could happen to the environment, we're going to have to go with extreme measures. This is the exact same thing that Michael Gove and the government did during the lockdown days and when the pandemic was happening. They said, well, we're going to have to go with the most extreme scenarios, that data that we can actually have, and then we're going to present it to the newspapers and the media, and then we're going to justify our draconian measures and authoritarian lockdown measures to say, well, this could happen. 500 billion people could lose their life within the next 2 hours. So we're going to have to go home and clap for the NHS at 8 p.m. on Thursdays. And they got exposed. Same things happening, was happening in the Bank of England. Now, Dr. Benny Pazer, who's Net Zero Watch's director, called on the Bank of England and the Financial Conduct Authority to accept that the risk of costly climate and net zero policies have actually become a bigger threat to the UK's economy and financial stability than the actual environmental issues. Unless the Bank of England abandons its fixation with green virtue signalling, it is only storing up more problems for the economy and the UK's financial system. Now, for those who have some common sense, but they still want to go with the environmental policies, there's a middle ground. So you can still have some environmental policies if you really want to. Recycling, renewables, whatever you want to do. I'm not really going with the extreme agenda. I'm just saying for those who actually want to do it in an establishment, you can do it, but you have to have fiscal responsibility and fiscal conservatism. You have to have financial stability. You have to have economic growth. You need to make sure that the country has enough money, and you have to make sure people are not hit. If the economy is making money, and of course His Majesty's Treasury will generate revenue through taxation, that way you can. If you're going to go with some soft environmental measures, you can, because the country has money and you're not going to take more money from the taxpayer, and you're not going to get ordinary people, working classes, and people with no actual income or assets to suffer in the winter. But if you're going to bring down financial stability and economic growth and everything about the GDP and everything that we have, and at the same time you tell the people of the country to sacrifice their own lives and dig deep in their pockets and give more money to the government so the government could use on net zero measures, well, this just makes absolutely no sense. This is exactly how any socialist regime that attempted to do this for different reasons to solve equality or eliminate poverty, it never worked. Venezuela was the latest experiment we had over the last few years, the last 10 years or so. Doesn't work. If the country has no money, you can't take money to give money to the others. It just makes no sense. But clearly, these days, our universities and schools, they continue to teach the schooling of Karl Marx and Lenin and the Nutters. How many times do we have to try this experiment to realize it doesn't work? Anyway, we are where we are, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to tell you about the other Nutters, China, Saudi, and Iran. We already reported a couple of days ago about this new friendship between Saudi Arabia and the Iranian regime, thanks to China. But we're going to talk about the details of this agreement and how Saudi Arabia, our so-called Western ally, have betrayed the West by going hand in hand with Iran and the CCP. I'm Mahyar, Tousi, and we are the media.